This is the Shure SM57. The Shure SM57 is often described as an instrumental stroke vocal mic as opposed to the SM58, which is basically I would call a vocal mic. It doesn't have a particularly flat frequency response, but it's got a contoured sort of response. So basically what happens is the bass region is rolled away quite strongly, so you don't get too much boom in the voice, but there's quite a presence peak. The mids are pretty flat, then there's a presence peak at about 6 kilohertz, and then a second one just a bit further up as well, so you get that sort of bite at the top. The quoted frequency response from Shure themselves says from 40 hertz up to 15 kilohertz, but actually I would say it's more like really something like 150 hertz up to 15 kilohertz before it really rolls away. It's a cardioid microphone with an impedance of 310 ohms. It's got a sensitivity of 56 dB, minus 56 dB. That means you really do need a strong preamp, a good preamp to really drive this properly. If you have a preamp that's not that good, what's going to happen is you're going to have the volume set right to the top range of what your preamp can do, and that's going to introduce a lot more noise. The microphone comes with a clip to hold it onto a stand, a nice little bag. This is quite a nice bag that they make actually, and the microphone of course itself. But Shure actually have their own ecosystem of things that you can get for the SM57 in particular. What I'm referring to is these things. It's a foamy, but this isn't your normal kind of foamy. The problem is with the SM57 is it's quite narrow at the top, and if you want to get a foamy to fit it, you can get loads to fit the SM58 type mics because they're bulbous at the top, but this is actually very slim, like a pencil mic. So this one is a special type of foamy. It's very good. They come in grey and black. I've got a grey and a black, and what it has is a little collar which goes onto the microphone, and that goes over the collar. You push it down onto the microphone, and then that flat top touches the top, and then you lift it, and you need a little screwdriver to screw it on, and then it stays on nice and solid. Now that means that this can't just be pulled off at will. You need a screwdriver to get it on and off to fix it. Another thing that Shure produce is a rather effective little shock mount, and here it is on my stand here. I just lift the microphone up, and it's kind of got this. I'm going to just keep my distance from the microphone, don't want to overdrive it, but the thing is, this is actually very effective. Not only does the mic have good isolation, but also this works nicely. So while I'm talking, I'm tapping all along the boom, and you can probably hear that there's not a massive amount coming through while I talk, which is rather comforting when you're using a speech mic, and the body itself isn't too bad. So if you tap it away, that's what you're going to get. One curious thing that people mention about the Shure SM57, and they often think it's a fault, is the fact that the top turns. It's not a fault, it's just the way that it fits, and it doesn't do anything, it just turns. Shure themselves recommend that the microphone should be held about 2 inches to 6 inches, although they say you can touch your lips on the top there. I don't think that's a great idea. I have tried it with spoken voice and I don't like it. Perhaps with singing, that's a different matter altogether. For speech, I find actually myself, for my voice, especially in a room like this, about 6 inches is about right away. So about 6 inches from my mouth is about the right distance. If I'm in a bigger room and I want a more of an open sort of sound, I would take it about 12 inches away. So for me, 6 to 12 inches, although Shure recommend 0 inches, I think it is, to about 6. So I think it pays to just play around with that a little bit. Bear in mind that I'm not in the best conditions, but also the fact is that if you haven't got the best conditions, sometimes a dynamic microphone is a better choice, even though it might not be quite as detailed as a condenser mic. So that's the thing, because in these rooms you're going to have a lot of reverberation, and basically you want something that rejects the reverberation as much as possible while also capturing your voice as cleanly as you can get it. So the dynamic might be a good choice for many people. This is the microphone from the front. This is the microphone from the side. This is the microphone from the rear, and that's where it might be picking up the wall, which is quite close. That's the microphone from the side, and I'm back to the front again. As you can hear, these microphones are pretty good at rejecting the noise of the room, the sound of the room, the reverb, and that's basically because they're close to you. You can handhold them. They're not particularly overly sensitive to touch, and you can use them this way quite easily, whereas with a condenser microphone you really need to place it and sit there and leave it there where it is, and basically move yourself maybe if you want to get closer and further away depending on the volume of your voice, whereas with this you can move it around. So now I'm going to try the SM57 in some other rooms just to see how it rejects the reverberation. My front room isn't particularly brilliant for sound, so what I've got now is I'm standing in front of the TV about 5 feet away, and I've got the volume off. Now I'm going to turn it to a comfortable volume. This is the volume that we normally listen to the TV at in the front room, and I would think that the microphone is easily getting over that, and the TV is literally only 5 feet away. Now if I turn the volume up, it's now got to an uncomfortable volume, and at this volume the neighbours might start complaining, but you can probably still hear me over the TV. And now what I'm going to do is whack the TV right up. Now it's really incredibly loud. I would say in the room this is louder than my voice, and it's making me shout. So the thing is this is very loud. So you can see, hopefully you're hearing my voice, let's get it down, over the sound of that TV. Now the volume there was absolutely deafening for this front room. If you can still hear me over the TV, then this microphone is really doing its job and rejecting the surrounding sounds and things that are going on. To test this mic even further, I'm now in a really echoey bathroom, and this room is really reverberant. So this is what it sounds like in a horrible bathroom. Not that you'd want to record it here, but that gives some idea of how this microphone can avoid really nasty reflections, because in here it really is like a church. In fact, actually, I would say that this is worse than a church. It's pretty bad. Another poor place to be for audio is in a kitchen where it's reverberant, but I'm also stuck in a corner. The problem with corners is that they reflect a lot more bass back. You know, if you've got hi-fi or something, placement of speakers, if you put a speaker in a corner, you're going to boost the bass an awful lot. So this is now in a corner, but not only is it a corner, but I've got the corner, it's a three corner really. We've got two walls and the ceiling, and the microphone is actually looking up at that ceiling as well. So you can see that this is probably one of the worst places in the house to record audio as well. Very good, isn't it? I'm doing a test here, and I'm testing it in all the places where you shouldn't really be recording, just to show that this thing really has good rejection. This is the SM57 being used direct into an Osmo Action. Now the thing is, you can use dynamic microphones into these cameras if you've got the right lead, and the one I'm using is the mic booster lead, which it actually acts as a preamp. So what's happening is it's using the plug-in power, and it's using that to boost this microphone even louder, and you can use this on the trot while you're out. Now I'm using the same microphone, but this time it's out of shot, just to show that this thing can even be used at slight distances, and when used like this it's going to pick up a bit more of the surrounding sound. And at the moment what's happening is there's a little generator going on up the road here, so you might be able to hear the generator. But what I'm going to do is use this shot, take my speech as it is now, I'm going to EQ the speech, but also what I'll do is I'm going to take some recordings of the sounds around me somewhere else away from that thing, and then superimpose it in stereo on top of my speech. And at the moment what's happening is there's a little generator going on up the road here, so you might be able to hear the generator. But what I'm going to do is use this shot, take my speech as it is now, I'm going to EQ the speech, but also what I'll do is I'm going to take some recordings of the sounds around me somewhere else away from that thing, and then superimpose it in stereo on top of my speech. So why am I using a microphone in all the worst places in this house, all around the place, getting as bad an audio situation as I can possibly get? The reason is because this is an SM57, and in all those occasions when I go out and I think, oh, I don't really know what microphone to use, this is the one I would actually use, because basically it's got a nice crisp top end, it's contoured, it's got a bit more top end than the SM58. It's got a nice smooth mid-bass response. It doesn't go particularly deep, it rolls away quite fast, but if you EQ, as I showed you outside, probably you might have heard if you had headphones on, the bass does actually come up as well. It is there. So this is a great all-round type of microphone, and I like the way it sounds, and I like the way that it responds to EQ. I even like the way it works outdoors. It's a terrific buy, and at the price you can get these for, I think it's an absolute bargain. Been around for a long time, since the 60s actually. I think the early 60s when these came out. In fact, it may have been out just after or just before the SM58 as well. If you're having trouble choosing between a 58 and a 57, I would say the basic difference between the two of them is the top end. This one has a little bit more in the top end, so there's a bit more crispness up there if you want that. But they basically, I think, use the same cartridge, the same capsule inside, just a different body in the way they work. So now I've got the top on, I've got the foamy on to stop the plosives. This is the sound of the microphone from the front. This is the sound of the microphone from the side. This is the sound of the microphone back to the side, and this is the front again. It's a good microphone, well worth keeping one in your box somewhere, because there's always going to be an occasion when you're going to say to yourself, I don't know which microphone to use, and it'll be this one, because it normally works incredibly well. Hope to see you next time. Cheers for now.